them came into power. And some of us have been fighting this for 20 years. So all we really want to do, we don't want to close down all the agriculture. We just want to support small farms and help consumers be more aware and make informed choices. And that is the cure. Food as cure to these diseases is to help young people exercise more, avoid screen time, and eat healthier foods. And in our lunch programs and for our SNAP beneficiaries, we can do that.
You know, you're also a writer, and your recent article refers to a Kennedy witch hunt. Explain your meaning of that witch hunt. How does it play out?
Very well. So, particularly in that hearing that I was referring to, Bernie Sanders, my Vermont senator, and Elizabeth Warren and others were going after him vituperatively, attacking him and to avoid what he was doing. The reason he removed the CDC director, I believe, according to Dr. Robert Malone, was that she would not cooperate with his effort to have the new independent ACIP commission review the existing data and evidence about the safety and effectiveness of mRNA vaccines. And that's what that fight is really about. And he didn't say people couldn't get them anymore, as came out in that committee meeting. He just removed it as a recommendation for healthy children. And for those that still need them or consult with their physicians who they trust more than these regulatory agencies, they can still get those vaccines, the mRNA vaccines. And he is not opposing any other vaccines, and he said he won't. So the witch hunt was the fact that they attacked him so persistently, whereas, and really unjustifiably, it was subterfuge to distract away from how close he's getting to pulling back the camera or the curtain on what's really been going on with these vaccines.
I have not taken any kind of medicine in probably 35 years. I just consider myself very fortunate there. And I do know.
And you had the South Seas. But there were some commonalities, and the real commonality was these diets were very high in minerals, and particularly high in what we call the fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, and K. And where do we get these fat-soluble vitamins? We get them from animal fats. We get them from organ meats. We get them from shellfish and certain seafoods. These are what we call the sacred foods, and they were highly prized, especially prized for having healthy babies. And so our mission is to bring people back to these foods, to get people to eat butter again, whole milk. By the way, egg yolks are a sacred food as well, very rich in nutrients and fat-soluble activators. So it's going back to the type of diet that nourished obviously healthy people.
Fascinating. Sally, one quick sec. We're going to take a break, and folks, we're going to be right back. Sally Fallon, president of the Weston A. Price Foundation. What about you? What is your backstory here? I mean, how did you get involved in working with the foundation?
Well, I came from an interesting family. I would say my parents were probably the first foodies in the world. They were very interested in food, and they traveled a lot. And my mother was a great cook, so she'd come home and make cassoulet or filet of sole meuniere or whatever. So, and she always used butter. I'm very grateful. So we grew up on butter. And I had a daughter who was a beautiful little girl, and that's when this message started to come out that don't give your kids whole milk, and don't give them butter, and don't give them eggs. Give them cereal, not eggs, you know. And I knew that this was wrong. It's just like you. I felt it inside. And it was just around that time I read Dr. Price's book, Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. And it showed me that I was on the right path.
You mentioned raw milk earlier, and this has become such an amazingly controversial thing. And I'll tell you something about when I grew up, right? My mother actually had been an agricultural inspector in Poland, and the sanitation was not good for her. If milk was not pasteurized, that was, a death knell. That's kind of what I grew up with.
Yeah.
Okay. I still remember. I'm going to tell the story. I was in France. I had made a deal with a woman who lived in Paris to help her out in her summer cottage, and I would get to stay and sort of, check out the countryside. She took me to a farm, and I tried raw milk, but I almost didn't because wait, you can just
You
drink
remembered
it straight.
what your mother
You
said.
can drink it straight from the cow. And she's like, are you crazy? Anyway, so apparently in the French countryside, it was perfectly normal thing to do. But why is raw milk so controversial?
Yes, well, we know a lot more about milk today than we did in the 1960s, let's say, where it was just assumed to be dangerous and full of germs. We now know that there's a large number of antimicrobial compounds in raw milk that kill pathogens but support the growth of the good guys in the gut. And these components protect the gut wall, and we just keep finding these wonderful things in raw milk. And they're all destroyed by pasteurization. And what happens in pasteurization, we now know, is that the proteins are so warped and distorted that they become allergenic. So more and more people are allergic to milk. It's the number one allergy. Consumption of pasteurized milk is relentlessly declining, in spite of all the publicity campaigns, the milk mustache campaign and everything, because it makes the kids have a tummy ache or makes them break out in a rash. The other thing about raw milk is that every single vitamin and mineral in the milk has a special enzyme to ensure 100% assimilation. And we don't have that in any other food. So 100% of the iron, 100% of the calcium, 100% of the B1, they're all absorbed and nourish the infant. And you can just, I wish someone would do a study comparing our Weston Price babies brought up on raw milk and babies brought up on pasteurized milk.
I heard from the NIH director that they're looking to do all sorts of studies these days on health. So maybe you could make a proposal, perhaps.
I would love to. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. But what we have done at the Weston A. Price Foundation is work on the state level to liberalize the laws. When we started, in only 27 states could farmers provide raw milk in some form or another. And now it's 47 states, so we're just lacking 3 states now. And there's what I call the Amish Empire. The Amish are taking raw milk all over the country, and wonderful.
Well, so tell me about your relationship, because this is exactly what I was thinking. When I think of raw milk, I think of Amish production.
Yes.
And so, what's the connection? So every Amish knows about the Weston A. Price Foundation.
No, they don't. No. But I would say the Pennsylvania Amish started this delivery system, and it just grew and grew. And I think this is why it's actually been legalized in many states, because it was there anyway. When we got the first pet milk permit in the state of Maryland, and there was already pet milk in Maryland from Pennsylvania.
What does that mean?
It means it has to have a label on it. It says it's for dogs and cats. It's kind of a little loophole. Okay. And I said, look, you're allowing Pennsylvania farmers to sell this milk in Maryland. You're not letting a Maryland farmer do this, and so they had to give us the permit.
I see. And so you're saying it's pet milk, but if someone happens to drink the pet milk, that's up to them.
Yeah, it's up to them.
I see.
And I have to say, Jan, I am a big advocate for strict cleanliness in the dairy. And we can teach farmers how to produce milk. We get 0 coliform when we test it. So, our milk is clean or cleaner than pasteurized milk.
No, you're saying ours. I mean, like milk that you are producing on your farm.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Well, tell me about that too.
Yeah, well, this is my husband and my folly of buying this beautiful little farm, and we have a small dairy herd. We produce raw cheese, and somewhere along the line, I was able to get the pet milk permit. But
I guess refrigeration is an important component here.
It absolutely is.
Yes.
Because even if your milk starts off clean, if it's not refrigerated, it will ferment. And by the way, when raw milk goes off, shall we say, it ferments. It actually becomes safer because it becomes more acidic. But when pasteurized milk goes off, it rots, and that is not safe. So in many ways, the raw milk is actually safer than pasteurized milk.
I've covered at the Epoch Times a number of controversies. I think about raw milk in Pennsylvania with the Amish communities.
Yeah.
People have been threatened even with jail for this kind of thing. Why is that?
Well, it's so foreign to the health departments. They think they're protecting the public, and I'm not criticizing anybody. They've just had the wrong education. You know, they haven't kept up with the science. But nothing gets the dander up of the public than going after raw milk, because you have what I call the raw milk moms who see how healthy their children are on this product, and they get out there. They get on the phone. They protest. They go to the trials. So.
And well, and I guess this raw milk, you were talking about cow's milk here. I guess it's because it's close to human mother's milk.
Well, all mammals produce milk.
Yes.
Okay, and it's all close to human milk. Some has more fat. And camel's milk has more salt in it, which is kind of interesting. But all over the world, mankind has nourished themselves with the milk of mammals: cows, goats, sheep, camels, water buffalo, reindeer. And the cultures that have herds are at an advantage because they always have available this healthy food.
But Weston A. Price, you do advocacy for raw milk, obviously, and that's part of your own interest as well. What other work do you do? And of course, there's the Nourishing Traditions cookbook, which I know, I don't know how many people have been using, but it's become an incredibly popular.
Well, it came out in 1996, and my co-author, Mary Enig, and I felt that we needed something else to be looking at the science, to keep this in front of people all the time. So we set up the Weston A. Price Foundation, which publishes a journal. So our number one role is education, but we also do advocacy, and it's not just telling people about the good foods, helping them find these good foods, because let's face it, you can't look in a newspaper and find raw milk, So we set up a website, realmilk.com, to find the raw milk, and then we have over 400 local chapters who keep a local food list. So let's just say you move to Alameda, California, and you want to find the raw milk, you call your local chapter, and they'll tell you where it is. Or you want to find pastured eggs, or some kind of food delivery group, or whatever. The local chapter will help you find that. A lot of people think we're sort of this homesteading movement, but I have to always correct that. Not many people can afford the luxury of being homesteaders. What I'm concerned about is getting these foods to the single mom living in an apartment in Brooklyn. This is the group that we need to meet, and this is what we're trying to do.
Well, this is a very great point. How available is it in situations like that?
Well, it depends.
Because there's food deserts. You hear about food deserts,
yes,
for example, right?
Yeah. Well, we do have a lot of deliveries. I believe there was a delivery in Brooklyn to a church basement for a while. I'm not quite sure what's going on now, but there's definitely food deliveries all over the country. And
so it's realmilk.com where people that are interested.
Realmilk.com.
Presumably, if you're not convinced, you're watching this and you're like, I don't know about this raw milk thing, but I want to know. Well, not quite, but I feel like I really want to read the science. Is that on realmilk.com? You have that information provided?
Absolutely. Yeah. We have a lot of articles about the science. Ted Beals, who did some great epidemiology for us, has articles there. So pretty much all your questions about milk will be on that website.
What are the sort of biggest lessons? One lesson I just got is that raw milk is good, healthy, and as long as it's refrigerated. Yeah. But what would other sort of top line lessons that we could learn from?
Right. Well, animal fats are good for you. They're not going to give you heart disease. Quite the opposite. They're very stable, and they support good health. They support heart health.
And where did that idea come from?
Yeah.
I started learning this maybe a decade ago that this was wrong, or maybe even a little more than that. But
you're going to promote your product, which is vegetable oils, and the way it's done is you demonize the competition. What's the competition? It's animal fats, butter and lard especially. So how are you going to demonize butter and lard? Well, you're going to pick things that are in butter and lard that are not in vegetable oils, saturated fats and cholesterol, and you're going to make those into a villain. And that's exactly what they did. And I have written extensively on this, showing how the early science they used to justify the demonization of the fats that had kept us healthy for thousands of years was just very flimsy. very flimsy science.
I read something in some of your materials about the politically correct nutrition.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Well, that's the food pyramid. It's lots of carbs, a little bit of lean meat, skinless chicken breasts, which are disgusting, and no butter. You know, and if you drink milk, it's got to be pasteurized skim milk.
why is that the politically correct?
Well, that's what the USDA is pushing on us with the food pyramid. Except what they're not telling you is there's a lot of seed oil in there, but it's hidden in the food. There's too much money riding on what we've got today. There's too much money riding on seed oils. They can't produce addictive, empty, junk food, processed food, without the seed oils.
You have a very dark view of the whole food industry, in other words.
Oh yeah, well I don't think that's where we should look. You need to get in the kitchen and produce. Doesn't mean you have to spend hours in the kitchen, but you need to get in the kitchen and learn how to produce healthy food for your family.
Well, Sally Fallon, it's such a pleasure to have had you on.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you all for joining Sally Fallon and me on this episode of American Thought Leaders. I'm your host, Yanya Kellett.